So now that you've set up your image, you can start to explore the locate and inspect part tools. But the first thing we'll want to do when we get to the screen is click the trigger again, make sure nothing has changed in the image, and then once that's complete, you'll want to click on locate part. So these are our location tools, and as you can see, there's actually a bunch of options here. The one we're going to use is called Max pattern. It will get the center point of this object, and it will recognize the similar patterns if it moves around the workspace. The other thing it will do is as we rotate the part around the workspace, it will give you the rotation over here in the result. So we'll want to click add, and then when you click add, you'll see that model and search have popped up down here as well as up here in the workspace. We currently have them searching in a rectangular model and a rectangular search space. But the other options here would be polygon, annulus, or circle. For this case, we can kind of just keep it as rectangle. We'll want to move the model over top of the image. Actually want to zoom in on the image to make sure we get it exactly as close as we can to the image itself. So just want to make sure you get the entire image. And so as you can see in the background, we have the grid. This may pose a little bit of an issue. Sometimes with these lines, when you take the image, it will pop up, and we'll see that in just a second. But first you just want to click OK. And then, yeah, as you can see, it actually caught this line right here. But it did a pretty good job other than that. And down here, it shows what our image looks like. And like I mentioned earlier, up here it shows a score of 100%, obviously because it's the first image we've taken. And then it shows the center point, and obviously it has not rotated from the initial image we've taken. So it has a 0 degree of rotation right now. So first thing we'll want to do is look in the General tab. We can change the tool name, and we'll call this Tape Measure. Tool fixture will come in handy later on when we have more tools. We can actually link tools to existing tools. Right now we want to have the tool enabled. It's our only one. And this would just, if we disable it, it just wouldn't be used in that job. Now we'll go into the settings. Acceptance and contrast threshold will come in handy a little bit later when we're trying to find this across the workspace. Right now we have a 100% score, but if you move it over, it could maybe not recognize it or recognize other parts as this part, and that's just going to be kind of playing around with your acceptance and contrast thresholds to make sure it only finds this image and always finds this image. The next thing we'll want to do is rotation tolerance. So in our case, we don't care how it's rotated around the workspace. We want to see it if it's completely upside down. We want to be able to detect it. In some cases, you may only want to see it if, like here we have the number 12. If you were running this along a like a conveyor belt and you wanted to make sure all the labels were put on correctly, you want to make sure that you don't have a very high rotation tolerance so that you see the 12 is always the correct, placed on the correct way. The label is always placed correctly. So here we'll change our rotation tolerance to 180 because we don't care how it's rotated. For scaling, this is just to say if we see the same image, larger or smaller. But in our case, we're only using this part, so that's irrelevant. And then some of these other options, I said earlier, we set it up as Max. Polarity, we're going to ignore that. Or I guess we're going to ignore the option to ignore it. And then the horizontal vertical offset would just be if we want to see it slightly offset from the initial image. And down here, again, is the result, which is the same thing we get right up here. So the first thing we'll want to do is make sure that we set this image up correctly, and we'll do that by moving it around the workspace. So like I said earlier, I have it set to manual trigger. I've just moved the object, and now we will take an updated image. You can see, okay, it has an 86.3% match, and it shows the rotation. It's rotated, 6.5 degrees in the counterclockwise direction. And then that's the location based off of the XY coordinate up here, which is the 0, 0, based off of what we did with our setup image. And then we'll just try to move it around a little bit and see if maybe we can trick it to not recognize the tape measure. So I've just moved it again. Click the trigger. Okay, and it has a 92, so clearly it's. We'll try to move it out a little more. Ooh, 76.3. As you can see, it's actually recognizing some of the background here. Moving again. Okay, and there it doesn't recognize it at all. So when this happens, what we'll want to do is, go back into the settings and change the contrast and acceptance. And so maybe we'll try going up a little bit. So if that doesn't recognize it, maybe we'll go down to 5. See if that changed anything. Nope. So we'll try the acceptance. Sometimes the acceptance is tough because if we change it a little bit, it may actually recognize a spot over here. Now in this case, it actually did work. So we dropped our acceptance to 40 and it found the tape measure. So we'll move the tape measure one more time. As you can see, it only has a 43.1 score. So we'll move it again. Okay, well, it's actually out of the search area, so that's my fault. So we'll try it again. Okay, and it's recognizing it. I'm actually going to move it off of the white space and see if it recognizes it down here. And it does. Okay. Move it one more time. Cool. So we set up our first image, and we're actually doing a pretty good job of finding it. Now what we'll want to do is remove the image from the workspace, put in a different image, and see if maybe it gets confused. So we'll start with a pair of scissors. I have removed the object from the workspace, and now we're going to click the trigger. Okay, so this is good. Sees the scissors, and it doesn't confuse them for the tape measure. So now we'll try another tape measure in a different color and different size, and see if it confuses that based off of the shape. So we'll click the trigger again. Okay, and it still does not detect the tape measure, which is exactly what we're hoping for. So in this case, we've actually set up a pretty successful image and put it back in the workspace. We'll try it again. We'll see if it finds it with the other image there, and it does. So that's the very basics of setting up or locating your part within the workspace.